Welcome, jerks. Hi. All right, hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. We've had a couple technical difficulties here. My mic is on. Can anyone hear me and see me? Let's just make sure. How am I doing, everybody? I see Sheila in the chat, Victory, Sarah. How's the tech? Because it looked like we had a little glitch and then we were muted, but it looks like we're good now. How's everyone doing tonight? I'm ready. We're running a little behind. No intro. We don't do any fancy YouTube intro. We just get right into it. Okay, you can hear me. Great. Thank you so much. We've got a great guest. Of course, I got an important phone call right before the show tonight, and then trying to set up the guests. We're all set, but we started chatting as well. So I'm sorry we're a few minutes late, but we're here. You 5 minutes late is not late in YouTube. A lot of times people are like a half hour, hour late. So yeah, we don't need the intro, right? We got the great guests. We just get right into it. I'm enjoying YouTube, being back on YouTube. I did take a little time off, as you noticed, from doing live shows. I came back yesterday, did my first live show in a while. And tonight we have a great guest returning to the show. And I think people are amped up. I see you all in the chat already ready to go. Tell your friends, make sure they don't miss this tonight because we're going to be covering a lot of topics, a lot of local news, a lot of local coverage. Yes, you know who's here. You already have it. Yeah, there we go. People are ready to go. Miss Drea is ready. Who else? I saw some other comments. You guys are flying by. I'm not used to all the quick comments. There we go. Judge Erskine. Let's bring her up. We have a retired family court judge. She's a big child advocate in Massachusetts. She's calling out a lot of the issues with DCF in Massachusetts, the Department of Children and Families. There's a lot of issues, and we had her on the show in the past. We talked about her book called Cruel Injustice by Judge Carol Erskine with Blair Miller and Jonathan Bobbitt Miller. It's about Sweet Harmony Montgomery, a young child that should still be alive. Proceeds go to help children, families, adopted children, older children. So it goes to a good cause. We're going to definitely pin that in the chat tonight. We also have pinned right now is her website. So if you want to check out more on the guest tonight, you can definitely hit that link. It's going to be pinned to the chat tonight. I'm looking forward to the show tonight. This is going to be fun. I want to thank, the Real V Dot. I know he cares about this. He's a big advocate. Real V Dot just sent $9.99. Of course he's here. He talks about this all the time on Twitter. So let's bring her up. Judge Carol Erskine. Am I saying it right when I say Erskine, or is it Erskine?
Yes. No, it's Erskine. You're saying it
Yeah,
right, just
that's
like you
what I
did
thought.
last time. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me, Mike.
Yeah, I thought I got it right last time,
Yeah,
but you'd be surprised. Sometimes people don't correct me, and then I realize like 3 shows in that I've been saying it wrong the whole time. So,
well, it's hello to people in the chat. A lot. I see a lot of very supportive things in the chat, and that's really nice. I really appreciate it. I'm still not used to these forums after being locked in a courtroom for 20 years, but thanks for having me.
it's funny. I do these shows, nightly for a couple years, and I'm still not used to it. Especially when I take a break too. And I don't know if you know, I have one eye now. Like I'm blind in one eye. I'm getting
Oh
a
no.
cataract surgery pretty soon. So it's hard for me too, even though I'm familiar with it. Just keeping up with the chat and seeing what's going on here and producing a show. I'm not, used to have a producer, so it's always fun being live, and I'm happy to have you here tonight because you've been covering a lot, and one of the things I wanted to get into right away is just some of your posts. Before we do that, I'm going to put this on the screen right now, which is a cruel injustice about the book on your website. So if people want to get the book, the website's the Justice File. We have that linked right now in the chat, but it's got a lot of information on there. And this book, Cruel Injustice, do you want to tell people about baby Harmony first?
Yes, of course. So many people know Harmony was a little girl who was in custody in the state of Massachusetts for 4 years and 8 months. She barely knew her father. At times he didn't visit her for a full year or longer. And he was in jail when she was born. Mother had a substance use issue, and Harmony was in custody. She was in a good foster home. DCF pulled her out, sent her back with the mother. The mother relapsed. They sent her back into foster care, sent her back with the mother. The mother relapsed and then back into foster care. So there were 3 times they reunified, and then they decided the goal would be adoption. And then the father, who had a massively violent criminal history, started visiting, and out of the blue, the department decided we're going to put custody with the father. So there was a hearing. I don't want to call it a trial because it was a case that was 4 years and 8 months old, which means, I mean, I've done massive trials like that where a child is in custody for a long time. It was about a 6-hour trial. Mother was in another court on Jameson's case, the brother's case. They gave custody to the father. He took her to New Hampshire. The judge and the lawyers the lawyers for the father and for Harmony didn't support having a home study in New Hampshire to see if she'd be okay there. And so the judge allowed that. She went to New Hampshire, and within 5 months, he was beating her, punching her in the head, giving her a black eye. There were 18 child abuse reports filed. He didn't let her go to school. He didn't let her see doctors. He just, brutally treated her, having her scrub floors with a toothbrush. I mean, this kid, she was 5 years old. They became homeless in November that year. And, she was so afraid of him, and she was in the car. She wet her pants, and he just beat her to death, just slamming her in the head, beating her at every stoplight. And at one point, she didn't wake up. Her heart stopped. He got out of the car and he put her in an Under Armour bag and then carried the body around for months, just abusing her body. And then he disposed of the body. No one knows where. So he has been convicted of her murder. My issue, of course, in Harmony's case, in this book, I have issues with both New Hampshire and Massachusetts. But in my book, I tell the story of how Massachusetts completely bungled the case involving her, and basically, as I say in the book, put her on a lethal trajectory. They basically turned her over to her murderer. They knew he had shot someone in the head. They knew he had stabbed someone and pushed him out of a car. He held 2 people at knife point or gun point. He had 22 crimes on his record. They weren't even considered by the court, and it wouldn't be unexpected that when she was living with him, he almost immediately began using substances again. And we had family members calling DCF saying, "Save her, take her out," and they just didn't. So I write about the Massachusetts case, and that's what a cruel injustice. It's a hard read. I have to explain the law in a way because it's complicated law, but I try to explain what happened in Massachusetts that basically resulted in this little girl dying, and basically, telling the state of Massachusetts, you're responsible for this. Everybody involved in the case is responsible for the way the case was handled. So that's what the story is about. And yes, I came out in September 2024, and I made a decision along with the 2 other the co-contributors are the dads of Harmony's brother. I did Harmony's brother's adoption. I finalized it. I had gotten to know them. And Jameson is doing just so well with the dads. But we all decided that we weren't going to make any money off of Harmony's story. So I donate every cent of the royalties to the Dave Thomas Foundation for adoption, because they find adoptive homes for kids with disabilities or hard to adopt kids. So that's the story behind the book.
Last time I believe you came on, you did sell some books, didn't you? It helped out with the charity, hopefully.
Amazingly helpful. I've done a couple of podcasts, but I do find after these podcasts, people will go on Amazon I mean, at one point, it was number, I think, 6 on the Amazon bestseller list under criminal law, which is quite a feat considering the millions of books that are on there. But the people that watch like your podcast and other podcasts and hear about the book have been really wonderful. And it's nice for us because we've been able to donate 5 times royalties to the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. So I'm so grateful for the people that decide to get the book and read Harmony's story, because it's just a sign that people still care about her. As you know, I think he appealed his murder conviction. Oral arguments were in October, so I'm kind of expecting any day to hear, whether they're going to give him another trial, which I think would be devastating.
Man, I can't believe he's appealing. Like, he knows what he did.
Oh, I mean, when you hear about him and read about him and what he did, and as I listened to the murder trial, it was just, oh my gosh, it was just so sad. And the state of New Hampshire was even worse because they just didn't do anything. There were 18. I mean, they knew that she had a severe black eye in July that year, and they were supposed to be there. And for whatever reason, the social worker, even though the social worker told the governor in the governor's report that he had seen Harmony that day, and that he had done what he was supposed to do, which was notify the police. What came out at the trial, because he couldn't lie at the trial, was he drove up and she was getting into the car with Adam. He didn't see her for days later, when the bruise was fading. But the truth of the matter was, New Hampshire's report to the governor's office in many respects is very misleading, because once the trial happened and the social worker testified, then we all knew that he never saw Harmony. And the frustration for me is, if he had seen Harmony that day, by law he would have had to have the police with him because it was an assault. But instead, and we now know because it's been reported by New Hampshire, he called the police and said, "I saw the little girl. There were no bruises, no marks." And so, of course, he had to contact the police by law, but he basically told them that he saw her. And of course, we know he didn't. And so she, one of the things I wrote about in my complaint to the FBI about the state of New Hampshire and their treatment, their civil rights violations for Harmony, was that that she was essentially treated unfairly, that there were missed opportunities there, and that she should have been alive that day. So it's a sad story in Massachusetts and in New Hampshire. And I will tell you this, Jameson, he's just turned 9, but he was 5.5 when he was with her at times when they were with the mother or in foster care. He has very strong memories of her. And when Blair and Jonathan adopted him and the doorbell would ring when they would have a guest or something, he would run and say, "It's Harmony," and just wanted to see her. When he draws pictures in school, he always puts a heart with an H above at the top, to recognize Harmony. So he does not know that she was murdered. He only knows that, she passed away. And in the book, there are 4 chapters of questions that I asked them, and then they recorded their answers. And my questions aren't there, but I lead into it. And they talk about, when they met, and they adopted 2 other kids. They were private adoptions, but there's a section in the book where they talk about the day they told Jameson Harmony was dead. And I to this day, I had to, write it and put it in the book, what they had written. And to this day, it's very emotional when I read it or hear about it, because he just sort of collapsed in their arms and just, sobbed and said, "I wish you wouldn't have died." So, they've got a ways to go, because he just doesn't know the whole story yet. So that's what's behind that. And that's in part why, when I got off the bench, I decided, to be able to do advocacy now, because when you're on the bench, you can't talk about stuff outside of court. That's the rule. So it's like a stranglehold. And there were lots of things I wanted to say. So people used to say to me in court, my session clerks and others, they'd say, "What are you going to do when you get off the bench?" And I would say, "I'm going to say everything I wanted to say for the last 20 years, but couldn't." So that's pretty much what I'm doing. And I've gotten a lot of support from people, like in podcasts like this and on X. And, people, the thing that makes me feel so good is that people really care about these children, and that's just really very comforting to me after having told the story.
Future. This is like the most important thing is the kids, and it just breaks my heart that he doesn't even know. Like, when's he gonna find out? Like, I just hope he has the right people around him when he finds out.
Yeah, he does. And they're very careful about how they're handling it. And I think they're, doing a very good job. And, yes, they have people around them. And, Jonathan is a wonderful person. He's a trauma nurse in an emergency room, in a big emergency room in Atlanta. Blair's been around this stuff for a long time. He's an anchor and longtime, reporter and investigator. And so, they sort of understand how the way the world works, but, it has to be done at the right time. But he's an amazing little boy. And, I really enjoy talking to him when I get the chance. And he's just, amazing, very, very smart, incredibly smart. But as you know, I think I don't think I would surprise anyone by telling people that kids who have been in foster care, have their own issues, having been removed from families. So so that's the story. And thank you so much. I see some of the people, are seeing just how sad it is, and in the chat, and wanting to read the book. So I'm grateful to all of you for that. And people can, I think it's on the ebook is probably like $3 or $4 or something like that. And frankly, I like ebooks because the print is big, and at my age, I need the print big. But it all brings it all brings a royalty, and so and that just goes to children. So thanks for doing that, Mike.
Excellent. It's in the chat if people want to purchase the book. It's also on the website, the Justice File. We also have that pinned in the chat. Like you said, it goes to a good cause. Yeah, it's just a tough thing to talk about. The Harmony Commission is something that we've talked about on the show here, and I think on the Grace Curley or the Howie Carr. I know I had
Yes.
you on there. I can't remember which one it was, but one of those shows over there on the Howie Carr Radio Network, we talked about this. What is going on with the Harmony Commission? Because this was something that you wanted to pass as a law to kind of correct this. Where does that stand right now, the Harmony Commission? And tell people what it is.
Yeah, we're looking. I filed this with Senator Mike Moore, who's an amazing guy. And we actually filed it like literally within days after the Office of the Child Advocate put its report out, basically criticizing the department, the court, and lawyers about this, and saying that, we really need to have a working group to start looking at these issues. I'm just looking at Fancy, who said, "Judge, you were always fair when I had to go before you." Thank you for letting me know that. That makes me feel so good, just to hear from someone, that thought I was fair. I loved the kids that came before me, especially the teens. But the Harmony Commission, so we filed legislation creating a commission that would examine the laws, that created some of the failures in Harmony's system. But we have been fighting Senator Spilka and House Speaker Mariano. We have been fighting them all along. They have killed the bill 3 times. I've testified before the House, Senate, and House and Senate Committee on Children. And they just are dragging their feet. I think that there's a general belief, there's been opposition to it by people that you wouldn't even believe. But there's opposition to it from inside the secret system that I worked on, and people don't want it because they don't want people looking inside the system. And so one of the things I did with Harmony's book is say, I'm going to reveal the secrets of what goes on in the system. And so we're waiting now. It's still pending. It did pass through I think it's with Senate. I think it's with Senate Ways and Means. But I'm not holding my breath. But I'll be on X asking for people to to email the right people when the time comes, and I'll probably call you and say, can you get us on, or maybe Howie Carr or someone,
Definitely.
to do that. Yeah, so that's where we are with the Harmony Commission. I'm just looking for oversight, and and as because you text when you sent me a message the other day to come on, that I'm dealing with other issues of advocacy regarding children that have been fatalities in the system, and trying to get some justice and recognition from the legislature and the governor. So that's where I am. I've got a couple of cases where I'm trying to help out, some people to understand the system. I'm not representing them because I'm not going to take on any representation as an attorney. But yeah, I mean, I've got just a lot of things going, including going to be filing a request to the U.S. Attorney next week for discrimination against kids who are in DCF custody who have disabilities.
So that's with U.S. Attorney Leah Foley.
Yes. So
Before we talk about that, I want to track back to the State House, because the Harmony Commission. Who should people be contacting right now?
what they should be contacting if they're in Massachusetts is whoever their state rep is, or whoever their state senator is. And you can go right on mass.gov, House, Senate, the Mass Legislature, very easy to find, and find out who your state senator or who your state rep is, and then send them an email. I'm writing about the Harmony Commission. I want to know why it hasn't passed. I want to know whether you're going to pass it. I support this. This is being done to protect children in the state, and that children, the number of children have died in Massachusetts. However you want to say it, but if you write to if you absolutely just send them an email, it's going to be on their mind, because they do remember that.
Excellent. Some people saying I'm having some mic issues, so I've got to get a little louder. I've noticed too, something's going on with my mic. It keeps turning on and off, and I may have to get a new mic. I don't know what's going on here tonight.
I'm hearing you just fine. So
can you hear me? You can hear me fine? All right.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Yeah, so like you were just mentioning Leah Foley, the U.S. Attorney. What's going on with that? What's the story on that one?
Well, I'm trying to, for one, trying to get the attention through federal authorities, and I have been actually able to do that. And there are some things going on in Washington, D.C. around some of the things I filed. So I'll talk about those maybe at some point. And I'm also getting some help from a woman named Maureen Flatley, who's really one of the most well-known child welfare strategists in the country. And she's from Massachusetts, and she's in Washington, D.C. a lot. So, we're getting some help there, because she's just an incredible advocate, incredibly intelligent. But what is concerned, this is what's concerning to me. So, and I think as people listen in the chat, they'll be so angry about it too. But 5 years ago in Massachusetts, DCF was allegedly discriminating against parents with disabilities. And so there was actually the Department of Justice actually filed a claim against Massachusetts, first in the country, saying you're discriminating against, not foster parents, but parents in the system by treating them by treating them unfairly because they had a disability. And so while DCF in Massachusetts didn't admit that they were discriminating, they agreed to basically all these requirements in a settlement. There was a settlement saying, this is what you have to do. You have to have this education. You have to stop doing this. It's a whole list. And that's all documented by the DOJ. And then the other thing that happened, which just ended a few years ago, was a famous case called Rosie D., where a federal judge said in Massachusetts that they weren't making services available to children. And what they were doing is they were kind of warehousing them in programs and in emergency rooms. That judge was so angry that he basically put a monitor in to monitor Massachusetts to actually make changes. That's a very famous case called Rosie D. So what I did was outline those two things to provide a historical perspective. And then I took 3 cases, Harmony Montgomery, and I listed all the facts of the case based on what was in the Office of the Child Advocate report and made factual allegations. And then I said, based on these factual allegations, I listed why the state of Massachusetts violated federal law because Harmony had a disability. She had a rare condition called septo-optic dysplasia, which came out at trial, but which I knew, and where she was blind in one eye and had other issues. And because she had been in and out of foster care, she began having emotional problems. And DCF basically took this disabled little girl and they put her on a wait list for treatment, which was absolutely horrible. And so that's one case. And so I outlined all the details. And there you have a child who was murdered. And then I took the second case, David Almond, who was a 14-year-old autistic triplet who had been in and out of care of his father and the father's girlfriend in New York and in Massachusetts. And they came to Massachusetts and DCF put him back. It was a court-involved case, but DCF has the authority to just take a kid out of foster care. He was in a residential placement, a sweetheart of a kid who was in school, and he was being unbelievably brutalized and mistreated by the father. And basically, right under DCF's nose, although there was COVID at the time, but all this was happening before COVID, basically what happened is they sent him home, they sent the brother home, and they left the other triplet in residential care. And then a call comes an emergency call comes, and the paramedics get to the house, and this kid's he's not breathing. And, they try to save him. They get to the hospital and they realize not only was he abused, but he was essentially starved to death. He weighed 86 pounds by the time they got to the hospital. So he was starved to death right under the department's nose. And he's clearly a kid that had disabilities. So the one thing that I always talk about that enrages me the most about that case is DCF because he was 14, everybody gets like an action plan. The 14-year-old, the parents, you should do this, you should do that. David's action plan was, and I quote, David will learn to keep himself safe. That was the action plan. While they were apparently DCF, didn't understand that he couldn't keep himself safe while he was being starved to death because he was starved to death. And so I detail all the facts from David's case as detailed by the Office of the Child Advocate investigation. And then I write what federal laws were broken and why they were broken based on those facts, why they were violated. And then the third case is a new case, Azella Ortiz. The father's awaiting trial. In David's case, both the stepmother and I think girlfriend and the father both entered into a plea for murder, and they were convicted of murder, sentenced to life without parole. Azella Ortiz is a little girl from my district out here, out in Worcester County, and she is, DCF has been involved with the family for 3 years, and Azella and her siblings were basically nonverbal, possibly autistic. We don't really know, but they clearly had many problems because DCF kept writing an action plan for the family to bring these children to early intervention services and get developmental services. And the pediatrician was saying they need developmental services. And DCF kept checking in on them. And the father, they were living with the father. The mother was living separately, but they never complied. They never got the kids services, any services, really. For 3 years, those kids didn't have developmental services. So last year, Azella, there was an emergency call. She was brought to the hospital. They couldn't save her. When they examined her, she had bruises and she had an injury, a blunt force trauma to the head, and she died. And they brought the other 2 children in. The little one was 2. I think they said he tested positive for, fentanyl maybe. I'm not exactly, can't remember. And then the other child, who was 6, had never been in school and also had injuries. So Azella's father has, of course, pleaded not guilty. But the reason I call it a homicide is because the medical examiner has determined that it's a death by homicide, just not who committed that homicide. But I then again go in detail to describe in detail all the things that were missed, all the services that weren't provided. And then I compare them to federal law and federal regulations. And I ask the U.S. attorney, look, there's a problem here. Children with disabilities are not being treated correctly in Massachusetts because under the law, you can't just provide the same kind of services and the same kind of case management as you will for a non-disabled child. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because I am going to make it public, because I'm going to release it next week. It's a 45-page document. And, there's a long list of what what the references are in the reports. And my hope is that the federal government will step in and do another investigation and say, we've got a problem here. And I'm also going to send a copy to the governor and say, this is what's going on here. And as you know, and that's 3 children. I did an op-ed piece about it that was in the Worcester Telegram. That's actually republished on my website. But all I'm trying to do is, and it's hard not to get emotional about this, is to prevent another child from dying. Because in the last 11 years, 7 children who were involved with DCF had died by homicide. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And so I'm just working hard, and that's why those kids that are up on the graphic, the OCA wouldn't reveal the name of one child. That's why you see the little foot. But all of those kids, Jeremiah Oliver, and Harmony and David and Chase, yep, Bella Bond, and that's Azella. And Bella Bond was the little girl found on a beach.
On the island. I remember.
Yep. And Jeremiah Oliver, which came under, basically that happened in Worcester County, which was, of course, my jurisdiction, and under my jurisdiction, when it got reported, we can't, got reported to the court, we can't find this child. And so, and he was found in a suitcase. And you see David there, who was starved to death. And, I know this is really hard for a lot of people listening, and I'm so grateful that they are listening, just because the more people that know, the more people I have behind me, who are supporting me and getting to the right people. I heard thousands of child abuse cases over the years. Lots of times I sent those kids home because it was a neglect and it could be resolved, or it was a substance use case and it could be resolved, because kids should be home, but the problem is right now in Massachusetts is that the trend has, the pendulum has swung back to family preservation. And I totally agree with family preservation. I mean, I sent lots of kids, lots of times DCF wanted to keep a child in foster care. And I'm like, no, there's grandparents here. I'm giving custody to the grandparents. I'm not going to let you control this case. When the child can go home, that's great, but the grandparents are here. But what people have to understand is there are cases, where children just cannot safely be at home. And a lot of people in Massachusetts right now don't want to recognize that. And so when you look at those 6 faces and that little, baby foot, these are kids, who where family preservation was not the right decision. And has a DCF paid the price for it? No. Has the governor paid the price? No. Has the legislature paid the price? Those children that are up on your screen are the people that paid the price for the fact that Massachusetts refuses oftentimes to recognize that there's danger for some of these children, and that danger is so overwhelming that they could lose their lives. So that's where I'm at today, and that's really what I'm working on.
Oh, these 7 kids, I know Bella Bond because I remember that one. That was tragic, and I think I used to see that mom actually around Boston and Cambridge. Actually, I'm pretty sure was kind of familiar with her actually, which is that was just a horrible tragedy. What
Yeah.
about these other kids? What happened to these kids, like
Well,
individually?
of course, Harmony, as you know, was murdered by her father when the state of Massachusetts decided to send her with her father. And David is the autistic boy. You see him next to Harmony, who was starved to death. Chase, I believe, was a head injury, if I remember. And of course, Bella, and that was determined to be a homicide, I think, by the mother's boyfriend. And then Azella's case is pending, and the baby was also head trauma. They write about it in the OCA, but don't give the name. And it's interesting because these are kids that should have probably remained in foster care and been adopted. But I always want to be clear about this and really fair, because sometimes foster care is not the right thing, and I'm not willing to say every single foster home is great for kids, because I saw a lot of teenagers, runaways, sexually exploited kids when I wasn't hearing criminal cases or child abuse cases. And, some of them had been in foster care and had been in foster care for a long time. And some of the stories they told me were really concerning. And, they not only did they want to be out of foster care, but it wasn't necessarily the right thing. So some of the foster homes, we've seen cases. I don't even want to talk about some of the stuff that we've seen, about some cases where, there might have been some reason to remove the child. There have been foster care cases, and I had one where there was a very, very tragic outcome. So, I'm not going to say that I won't recognize what, I think someone posted. I absolutely do. But I will say that the majority of foster homes that I dealt with were, good people who just wanted to do something, really important and something good. But it's not always that way. As we talked about this, people, some people have other motives. So it's not that I didn't see that. And it's not that I'm against reunification, because anyone who was in front of me on the bench knows I was a strong supporter of reunification. And lots of times judges will just say, okay, the department wants to keep this child for another 3 months, and foster and the parents need to blah, blah, blah. That wasn't my style. My style was to talk to the parents and say, you know what, you're doing great. You're in substance use treatment. I really want to get that child back to you. Let's really work on it. And then I would tell the department, stop giving this person 1 hour a week of visits, and start increasing the number of time that child should be with the parents, because that's where the bond is. So I guess what I would say is it's complicated, and it's hard when you're a judge and you're listening to evidence from all kinds of people. And it's legally complex too. You have to really understand the law. So, so I like to see every side of it, and I like to recognize um, people in terms of in terms of their viewpoints of the system. But even for people like posting that foster care itself can be difficult and dangerous. I'm not going to argue that. It happened very rarely, but it did happen. Um, it's I think it's a balance. When you're a judge, it's a balance. And what am I going to do with this case? Am I doing the right thing? It's really hard when you're making a decision and you're like, okay, I think we can dismiss this and the child can go home. And you're thinking, look, I relied on the evidence in front of me. We had a hearing. I gave everybody a chance to speak. I really tried to listen to the evidence, and then I'm not going to return the child home, but I'm not going to return the child to foster care either. I'm going to give the child to the grandparents because they're here and they're awesome people, and I heard them testify. So, but it's hard. I don't want to. I don't want to make it sound like it isn't. It's very hard, very hard.
Question. She said, does any state have a gold standard program? Are any states doing it right? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that all states have different kinds of problems. So, if you look nationally, the little girl from Arizona, Rebecca, who was murdered not too long ago, and then the little girl Mimi in Florida. I mean, these children were allegedly murdered, and parents are on trial. So I think what one of the things I've been working on with people in Congress is even though there are guidelines, there need to be some additional guidelines. There was just a report put out by Health and Human Services, the new appointee who's the head of the Children and Family Division. And it's really shocking when you look at it, because what you see in pretty much every state is that they're not following the rules for getting kids a permanent home, either reunification or adoption or a guardianship, in the time that they're supposed to. So people will see this coming out very soon, and some of the things that have already come out from Health and Human Services show that the states aren't complying with that. So I'm not sure if there's a golden state out there. I've talked to judges in other states at times, and they also have their concerns. I just think, I'm hoping at this point that Massachusetts can get it right so that we don't see any more child fatalities.
People keep complaining about my mic tonight. I don't know. I'm trying to be as loud as I can. I don't know what's going on with the mic. I keep messing with it. I don't know, folks. I don't know what's going on. Having some issues. Fine. I turned it up as loud as I could. Because there's been a lot that's been happening with DCF, and like you said, the feds and the state level. There's also like this other case that was in the news like over the last couple of weeks, with the child getting sent to another country and the foster parents. I know we need to be a little careful on this one. What do you want to make any comment on that?
Well, I've made some comments. As you know, I posted that the child was supposed to go to Guatemala with her father, and the lawyer for the foster parents, who I've met, the lawyer for these folks went to federal court to try to stop it. Her position was that DCF doesn't have the authority to essentially deport a child to Guatemala because the child's an American citizen. The child was born in the United States to an American citizen. And it's, of course, it's very public in the news that the father was 29 when the mother got pregnant at age 15. And, that this is something that was raised, I think, as part of the federal case. And so they went to federal court, and the federal judge said, under this, there's a doctrine called the Younger abstention doctrine, which means the federal court has to abstain from or can't get involved in a civil court decision, can't just, all of a sudden hear it in certain cases like custody. And so the judge said, well, I'm not going to do anything. And then the lawyer went back asking for a stay to give them more time. The child had been with the foster parents for 3 years and apparently was doing well. But so the judge issued a stay, and then they went back into court on Monday, and the judge said, no, the child is going. We agree with the juvenile court. And the child was supposed to leave yesterday for Guatemala. And she didn't speak the language. She had been in foster care for quite a while. So the father, as has been reported multiple times, was deported at one point, I think maybe when the child was very young, because she's 8 now, as has been reported. And then he was deported because his work visa expired, and he was back in. And then he came back into the U.S., I'm not sure how, and wanted to work with DCF to get to know his daughter, which was a good thing. And he had visits with her, and but then he was deported. And so the child, as has been reported by many newspapers and many news outlets, he wants the child to be with him in Guatemala, and the juvenile court said, we're going to do that, and ordered the child to go. But a number of people got involved with this case from all kinds of different places, I believe, because what happened was, before she was to go, the juvenile court vacated its order. And I suspect it's because, as the lawyer said, and I've spoken to that lawyer and to the foster parents, and my understanding from the lawyer, and she was public about this and made very public statements about it, she was concerned, just like people were after the Harmony Montgomery case, was that the courts and DCF weren't paying attention to criminal records. I don't know that anybody knew if he had a criminal record, but what happened was that the lawyer for the foster parents found, I don't know if it's in the warrant management system or how she found it, but that this father had 5 or 6 arrest warrants outstanding. And they were for drug distribution, drug trafficking, I believe, and assault and battery, dangerous weapon, assault and battery in car cases. And of course, the warrants were outstanding because he was deported, so he was never in court. And so if you're never in court and you're never arraigned, then, to be fair, nobody would know that there's a criminal record. But the lawyer went to the various district courts. I think maybe one of the cases was under a different name. Something like that, but she found them. She found them in 2 courts, and she got a hold of the police reports and said, look, has anybody really looked into this, including an alleged crime that happened in Guatemala? So that it became very public, that maybe people didn't do enough due diligence other than just running a query and really looking in the warrant management system or police reports. And all of that came out, and then suddenly the court vacated its order. And so I think I think there's going to have to be a decision about what's going to happen. So that's where the case stands. The one thing I will say about that case, if it was a really good thing that she should be with her father because he's her father, and it could work out. And they could transition her in a way where she would feel comfortable in Guatemala and all of that. Well, then so be it. That's what has to be done. If she should be with these foster parents, or if there's another relative in the United States, well, then so be it. So my comments about this case are not who should have custody. My comments are about, once again, the process.
Yeah.
It's all about the process, because people have this notion that somehow kids don't have constitutional rights, and they do. And they continue to ignore them in the state of Massachusetts and not do what's in the best interest of a child. So, this particular case, I'm not about the issue of custody because the court will decide that, but they need to decide it having all the information and making sure that due process is guaranteed to everybody in that case, the father, the child, everybody. So we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen in the juvenile court, but whatever happens, I hope it's the right thing, for the little girl, or for the father if he gets custody, or for people that are hoping to, also have custody. So that's what I know about the case, which is mostly public.
Question from VDOT. He says, is there an entity similar to the Post Commission for Police Officers, but who oversees the DCF?
That's really a great question. And, the people that oversee DCF is first the DCF commissioner and the Massachusetts Secretary of Health and Human Services. So under Health and Human Services falls DMH, the Department of Mental Health, DDS, the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and DCF. So what I will say about that, and it's a great question, thank you for it. The people that oversee those agencies, the Health and Human Services Secretary and the Commissioner, is of course the governor, because she's the chief executive branch officer, and all of them fall under. But it doesn't operate, like the Post Commission, where if something goes wrong, it might be reported. But, the Post Commission, examines police officers when there are issues, ethical and other issues, that come under scrutiny in a sense that they need to be reviewed by the commission. There's no commission. And one of the reasons I want the Harmony Commission is not to oversee it, but just to be able to educate people and say, this needs to change. But thanks. It's a great question and a really important one.
So I guess that's the answer, real VDOT, is support the Harmony Commission. Call your state reps, your state senator. Ask them to support the Harmony Commission. I've got a question or comment from Mandy, who says, DCF tries to undermine most parents instead of legitimately trying to help. Do you think that's true?
Well, I think in some cases, DCF absolutely does not do what they're supposed to do. So it used to be called the Department of Service, DSS, Department of Social Services. But, it's not the department that provides the services. It's the department that makes referrals to services. And so it can be frustrating. And I do think there are times when they undermine the parents. And one of the things that I've talked about frequently, and this is also a great question, is a child comes into custody. And once they have custody, they have to allow visits under the law. That's required. You can't just all of a sudden, not allow visits and terminate a parent's rights. That just, can't be. But the department, basically, the social workers are overworked. I have great respect for them. They have tons of cases. I've seen many times social workers threatened by people. But on the other hand, they had the thing that would just drive me crazy on the bench. I would be like screaming about this. Why do you think 1 hour a week with this baby that this person needs to bond with, or this child that's missing a mother, and you send the mother to DCF for a supervised visit while the mother and the child sits in this room, and then they say, oh, you can have another visit next week for an hour? I would say, look, you have this parent's working, this parent's in substance use, treatment, and what do you think is going to happen? Why are we not increasing it? So yeah, in that respect, I often thought DCF was undermining the parents, because I didn't think it was legitimate that they were doing what they needed to do to preserve the family relationships by having a parent only see a child 1 hour a week. I understood the flip side, which is there are only so many social workers, and if they're all doing visits for 3 or 4 hours and they have too many cases, then, that's another issue. I don't know that they purposefully undermined parents, but there are some cases that went a lot better depending on who was handling the case than other cases. And so intentionally undermining is one thing, but undermining the chances for reunification is another thing. Because here's an example. It would be like, well, we want to keep the child because the mother needs services. She needs substance abuse counseling. And I would say, okay, well, did you refer her for substance abuse counseling? And the social worker would say, well, she's on a wait list and it's 8 months out. So how is it the fault of the parent that they can't get in? And then what? We're going to keep this child for 8 months? No. It's like we need to work harder to find the right kind of treatment. Because this just isn't working, and you have a parent who's getting tested and is drug free anyway. So there were things like that. So maybe not intentionally, but the way the system works really oftentimes prevents children from being reunified as quickly as they should. So it's an excellent question.
There's a case right now, Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Do you know about this? The police officer that got shot with the
Yeah,
baby,
right.
and she hasn't had any access to the baby. I understand she's under charges. She is doing alcohol testing. Um, but even more, I mean, she's going to court, I think, later this month about this. But the grandparents haven't had any access either. And I've met these grandparents. They're at every court hearing. Like one of them, Steve, the father of Kelsey Fitzsimmons. He's like such a stand-up guy. Like he's dressed more sharply than the attorney Tim Bradle at every hearing. They don't have access to the grandbaby. Does that what's that about? Like
Yeah,
what is that the father?
that's a great question. So the thing I don't know is does the father have custody, or does DCF have custody and the child is placed with the father? Because there's a difference. So you can have a child who's in DCF custody and there's an open juvenile court case like the ones that I heard, and the juvenile court case is open, and in those cases, then you have a child who's placed with the father, and in the other cases, which might be in the probate and family court, where the father has custody, and the probate and family court just gave him custody, but she's objecting to it, which is not a state involved case. So in her case, let's say the state, separate of what the underlying issues are in the criminal case. But here's the issue. So if I had a case where the father was actually in jail, incarcerated, right, and parental rights had not been terminated, and I don't think her parental rights have been terminated because she hasn't even gone to trial. If parental rights aren't terminated, the department was required, and I made it clear that they had to go to the jail and provide a supervised visit for the father. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is that parents have constitutional rights to their children. And even when there's abuse or neglect allegations, when you don't let a parent have any contact with a child, you are essentially terminating their rights without a court order to terminate their rights. So the question in the Fitzsimmons case is, if the Department of Children and Families is involved, then, even when she was still in jail, they would have to provide visitation. That's required by law, unless a judge finds by a very high standard, basically that it would be a risk or there's some danger to the child. Visits have to be provided. So if she hasn't seen the child either through DCF or through another court in some supervised setting, that's, concerning to me. But I don't know whether there's been a finding by a judge. But in my case, there were
There has been. Yeah.
there were very few times in my court when a child was in custody where I would issue an order under that standard and write why the visit shouldn't be there. Now, on the other hand, if the father has custody, well, let's just go back.
I know he has temporary custody. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, and so there's got to be some kind of order from, and I don't know if it's from the juvenile court and he has temporary custody. Still, if there's an open care and protection case in the juvenile court, then grandparents can petition separately to have visits.
That's what I think they're doing right now. But it's
Yeah.
taken a while. Like
Yeah, it does take a while, but that's the only time that they really have those rights. If they're in the probate and family court, it becomes more difficult. If he's just has separate custody on his own, it becomes a little bit more difficult. That's that Trexall, Supreme Court case. But and I'm not sure that's the exact name, but it becomes a little more complicated. So it's hard to answer the question other than to say if the child is in custody of DCF, even if a judge granted him temporary custody, conditional custody, if there's a juvenile court case open, the grandparents can petition for custody. That's one of the few times that, a judge has to hear a grandparent's visitation in the juvenile court. But I will say this, the law makes it really hard for grandparents to even get visitation. Although when a child comes into custody and a judge like myself, if I would order, if I said this child can't go home, the lawyers would say, well, we have grandparents here. It would allow a judge, and I did this, as I said earlier, many times, to say, I'm giving custody to the grandparents. Here you have a father who has temporary custody and they're looking for visits. And like I said, if the state's involved, they have a right to petition. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. That's kind of my interest in the case, because I worry about, a child that has two parents, whatever the criminal charges are, whether or not the parental rights of the mother are being violated. If she's not having visits, I just don't know. But yeah, the grandparents can petition if the state's involved.
Like I know one set of them are definitely petitioning. It's in family probate. There's going to be a hearing later this month about it. I'm not sure if the hearing's about Kelsey or the grandparents, but I know that there was a hearing posted in the Facebook group later this month. Let's look at this.
Probate in family court or in my court or in juvenile court, because it could be either.
Family court.
Yeah. Well, then that, it's probably different. I will say in family court, they too have the authority to put a child in DCF custody, just like I did. But chances are that he has temporary custody.
He does. He has temporary custody.
Then it just becomes a battle, kind of between the parents, like in a divorce case. Only there's these overwhelming criminal charges. And then I'm not sure what the rights of the grandparent are when the state is involved. I'm not saying they can't petition, whether they can, but certainly the judge can hear that petition. So I'll have to follow up with you, to see what's going on.
Let's say if she's found not guilty of all charges, does the court immediately give her rights back, or does she have to go to the court and beg for them again?
Well, there's an open custody case there, and I suspect they'll leave it as a temporary custody order until the criminal case is resolved. But even when the criminal case is done and resolved, and even if she's convicted, that's not automatically mean that her parental rights are terminated. I mean, she may not get permanent custody or ever get permanent custody, but that doesn't mean she won't get visits, even if she's incarcerated, and it doesn't mean that her parental rights will be terminated. So that's a whole different set of circumstances. So I think there's a lot to unpack with this case, but without knowing what's happening in the hearing, and I suspect the probate court will close that hearing so that the public can't be in there.
Went to was open. We'll see. But nothing really happened. Like, that's the thing. More happened on the sidewalk than happened in the court. But we'll see what happens.
That's not uncommon in the probate and family court. I mean, I did that work as a lawyer, and it's pretty interesting. I would be surprised, however, if the probate and family court hasn't appointed a guardian ad litem to investigate and make recommendations to the court. In a case like that, where there's a lot of serious circumstances, I would be very surprised if there's not a guardian ad litem. Also in the probate and family court, which people don't know, there are probation officers, but they function as family service officers, and they provide ongoing kind of monitoring of the case. and provide information to the judge as it goes along. So most people don't know probation officers are in the family court, but they are, just like they were in my court, in the juvenile court.
We'll see what happens there. I'm definitely going to follow up on that. It's funny because they didn't let us stream it. The last family court hearing, they allowed the public to come in. I was there, but we weren't allowed to stream it. So there was no like streaming. The public at home didn't get to see it, but not much happened anyways. It'll be
And that's
interesting to see.
you know,
She's got a
it's
very good attorney. I know
yeah,
that.
which is great. I think I think Martha Coakley's on it as well. Is she not?
She's on the criminal side, but
Yeah.
there's
Oh, right.
another. Her
Well,
name's
yes,
Lisa.
yeah.
I forget her name, but she's very good.
Well,
She's a family court lawyer.
and that's in Essex, right? I think.
Yes.
Out in Essex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that DCF is not involved if they opened the court, because if DCF were involved and had custody and they just gave him temporary placement, they would close the case because
They
they
would close
have
it.
to. Yep.
Only
So
family members. Yeah.
it's open. It's a standard family court custody case. So it will be very interesting to see. I don't know if she's seeing her child, and I don't know. I certainly hope she and the grandparents. I mean, grandparents. I mean, is there something wrong with having, people who love this child be a part of this child's life? I mean, it just seems punitive to me if they don't allow it.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think the father should just let the grandparents see the baby. It's just the best thing for them. So,
Yeah. Best thing for the baby too.
I mean, my mom and dad didn't get along growing up, but my mom still brought me to my grandparents on that side of the family because they were good for us. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
no questions asked.
Even as a lawyer, I represented a lot of grandparents in guardianship cases, to try to, keep DCF from getting involved, and had a lot of cases with grandparents, and it is amazing how many of them step forward. And I don't, well, I have I have some grandchildren, but I think if something happened, I would be right there to step in, so I can totally understand it.
Totally. You had a post here that I want to ask you about. This Twitter post, you said, "True crime and law podcast are powerful voices. In 2026, I hope they shine a light on the murder trials of the parents of Mimi Therese Garcia, Azel Ortiz, and Rebecca Batiste. Children failed by the very systems meant to protect them. Their voices deserve to be heard." What's the story? When are these three different sets of families? Three different, or is it one family? Like what's the story on this? Is it three different trials? Where are the trials?
These are going to be trials. I think one's in Connecticut. I'm blanking, but I think Mimi's case is in Connecticut. Rebecca's is in Arizona. An absolutely horrible case, with this child dying. So yeah, and people said send us some information, and I'll do that, and I'll do that with you as well, about people follow all kinds of cases, court TV, and all of that. And there have been a few cases, but these children, like the Azella Ortiz case, that's in Massachusetts. But whether or not they'll let people in to follow the case is another thing. So I was kind of calling attention to it, and I did hear from some of the podcasters saying, send me some information. I'm still going to do that. But these cases are just terribly sad. I mean, if you get a chance, look up Rebecca Baptiste. It's spelled Rebekah. Just sad cases that haven't come to trial, but they are coming to trial in 2026. And maybe, I'll get some more information out there to people, to you, and to some of the podcasters, to see if you'll at least give it some coverage. I mean, oh my gosh. Rebecca, on my X account, there's pictures of Rebecca, this beautiful little blonde beauty. What happened to her was horrible. And these are cases, and again, like with Rebecca, with teachers and school people were saying, there's something wrong, and trying to get people to pay attention, and it just it's just very sad, to see these kids dying. So, it's a sad thing to, I mean, I'm off the bench and, I'm aside from like teaching, which I do, it's, I decided to focus on this as sad as it was, because when Harmony died and Blair and Jonathan called me the first night when it's revealed that she had disappeared, and after we knew what had happened, they said to me, "What happened? Can you explain it? Tell us what happened. What happened in the system?" And so it took me, I think, 2 years to write the book, and then I just started focusing on all these reports in Massachusetts, but there are other states. I'm thinking, I don't know if Mimi is Florida or Connecticut, but it's either one of those because I just don't have it offhand. And Rebecca, I think Rebecca's Arizona. Horrible cases.
Ortiz,
So,
where is that one on? You said Massachusetts.
oh yeah,
Whereabouts in Mass?
that's in Worcester County. That's one of the
Worcester
kids.
County.
She's in one of the pictures of the 7 kids in Massachusetts that's been
Oh, that's
declared a
her.
homicide victim, Azella Ortiz. So that case, that trial will be coming up, I think, in Worcester Superior Court.
I'm gonna bring her back up. I want to take a look. Let's bring that one up. Hold on, I'll bring it up on the screen.
Little Azella,
There we go.
5, I
The
think
full
5
picture.
years
So
old. Yeah, she's in the
the
middle.
one on the bottom.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
man.
Azella. So that trial's coming up.
Was it her father or mom or both? What
The
happened
father's
to her?
been arrested. The mom and dad, I from what I heard, at the arraignment and what I know about the case from reading about it, and actually from the OCA, there's a lengthy OCA report. That's why I wrote the op-ed piece, because I wasn't happy with what the director of the Office of the Child Advocate said. I just wasn't happy with it. She's like, Azella Ortiz's case and Harmony's case are not similar. That's why I did an interview with Kerry Kavanaugh on Boston 25 right after that and said, I'll tell you how they're similar. And then I talked about their disabilities Azella, the father, according to what they said at the arraignment, was that she fell off the kitchen table. And of course, at the arraignments, they said that the medical examiner basically said, that just the kind of blunt force trauma she had to the head, there was nothing like that. Plus, she had other injuries. So we'll see what happens. I mean, right now he entered into a plea of not guilty. Maybe it will be a plea. I don't know, but I'm just calling attention to it only because it's only like in the last maybe year or year and a half that I even found out about podcasters and law tubers and stuff. I mean, I didn't watch any of that stuff as a judge. I had enough of it during the day. So, now that, I know it and I've appeared a few times, I'm saying, hey,
Cover some of these cases. Yeah. I mean, I'm interested in that one, the Mass one, definitely. She looks very cute, little baby. It's like, oh.
Yeah, she was adorable little girl. So, Azella, and it's sad. And the other 2 siblings are, of course, in DCF custody now. So we'll see what happens to them.
How old are they?
Well, the one when it happened, which I think was last year, I think the little one was 2, so maybe 3, and the older one was 6, maybe 7. I think, what was written publicly was that these kids were nonverbal, so I think there's a question of whether they're on the spectrum or, what the issues are. There's no question, though, that they had developmental disabilities.
I'd say they could have done. I mean, I was nonverbal for a while when I was a kid. My brother used to talk for me. He's younger than me. So
yeah, I
sometimes
think,
it's just your environment. Sometimes it's the environment. There's nothing wrong with the kid.
That's very, very true. And they don't know that. But, I think what the information is that they're finding out. If you look at the OCA report, the investigation, I think, there's a lot of information in there with concerns, but we don't know because, the other 2 children, if they're in foster care or they're with a relative, I don't know what's going to happen with the mom. I don't think the mom was living with the dad because I think it was reported that he was the sole caretaker. But the mother, I think, went public at one point. Someone sent me some information on Facebook, or that the mother was on Facebook, and was seeking custody of the two children, of the other two children. So, maybe that's something that would happen if things are okay with her. It's hard to know. What we just know, of course, is that the other two children are in DCF custody. That was made public that DCF took them. But what I don't know is whether or not there's a grandparent or other people that might have temporary custody. But unfortunately, it was too late for Azella. They also said she was extremely malnourished. And so it's hard to know whether these kids were, like you pointed out, it's hard, kids might not be talking if they're, severely neglected. So we just don't know.
I mean, that can happen. Environment changes, they change.
Yeah.
Just like a plant. When you don't water a plant and all of a sudden you start watering and give it sunlight,
yeah,
plant blossoms.
very
Same with
true.
people and kids.
Yeah. Great analogy. Absolutely great. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to talk about. I'll apologize to the people in chat or watching for having to tell a lot of sad stories, but I'm
But the people
grateful
seem
that
to
they
want
listen.
to hear them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be on Boston 25, I think, next week, right?
Yeah, Monday. Just I think it's mostly about the little girl from Guatemala, but it's basically about the process. Not who should have custody, but trying to talk about the process and what was concerning. I mean, one of the quotes I said to one reporter is that it's concerning to me that it took the lawyer for the foster parents like a day to find these warrants and to find these cases. And it's concerning when that's not happening, and yet all these orders are being made. So we'll see. And I'll keep you posted next week. So I'm going to do that Monday, and then I think by the end of the week, I'm going to file the complaint with U.S. Attorney Foley. But I figured I'd wait until after the Patriots win and all the parades are over, and and then
When is the parade? Do you know?
I don't. Well,
Monday or two, if there is a parade, if there is one.
Parade. Right. Right now, I'm hoping there will be a parade.
It'll be either, I might bet Monday or Tuesday. We'll see.
Yeah.
This is this is the other little child you were talking about too.
Rebecca.
Blonde, I thought. Yeah.
Rebecca. Yeah.
Oh,
Baptiste.
they're so cute, these kids. It's like, that's the thing when you look at these kids and you're just like, how could anyone abuse them?
It isn't. I mean, and I know, and they're just like, I mean, when you read the circumstances, they're awful. But I mean, I've heard thousands of child abuse cases, and some of them are absolutely horrible and difficult to deal with. I always say probably the case, there was one case that I had that had to be public because it was a life support case, and the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts said when a judge is going to decide if a child is going to come off a ventilator, it has to be if they're coming off life support. So I did this. I had to do this case where this father beat a child. It was the first time he had ever had the child with him. He sought visits. The child lived with a grandmother, was doing well, little boy named Nathaniel Turner. And the father beat him so badly that he was in the hospital, and the hospital said he's brain dead and he's not ever coming back. We have him on a ventilator. So I had to hold a hearing with testimony with the doctor. It was the first time that I had to deal with the press in my life, because I had to open the court and there were just, a camera in there, a news camera and reporters. And, I walked onto the bench and I could hear click, click, click. And it was a little overwhelming for me. But, I knew what I had to do. And that was a case where I asked the doctor a lot of questions myself, about this and this and this, but it was clear that he wasn't going to survive. And so I issued the order that they could take him off the ventilator, but the family was here, and I returned custody while he was still on a ventilator to the family to decide they wanted to talk about whether they were going to donate organs. But it was a sad case, and it's still with me, and it stayed with me for a long time. But yeah, it's difficult to go home at the end of the day, when you're hearing a case like that. By law, judges in the juvenile court have to see every child. So I had to go up to the hospital to see the child in the intensive care unit, just a beautiful boy. So I don't want to end with a sad story, but I that's and so I apologize to the people that,
They're all sad stories, though. I mean, that's
yeah, yeah.
the work that you do, which is so important.
Yeah, but some of it ends really well, and
Yeah.
I will tell you, like we were able to deal with a lot of kids that have been sexually exploited or on the run and find the right thing for them. Some of them have written to me. I did a lot of adoptions when kids couldn't go home on National Adoption Day. Some of the teens, it's hard not to bond with them because you're talking to them and you're saying, "Come on, let's talk about how you can come in off the run," and things like that. I don't miss being on the bench because there are a lot of reasons that you're dealing with the administration of the trial court, but I miss talking to those kids. I miss talking to these kids that will tell me their life story. I had one question that I asked every kid, and that was, "What are you good at?" Because they would always tell me something. "I'm good at basketball," or "I
Do, don't they?
rap."
That's the truth. I used to, coach kids and teach kids too when, before all of this, and they will tell you, a lot of times it's, I like to fix cars, or I like
Yeah,
to race cars, or I like to do mountain biking, or I
yeah.
like to do art, I collect items, there's always something,
Yes, and
photography.
we
Yeah.
had a program with the art museum, so if kids liked art, we sent them to the art museum, and they had actual artists and docents working with them. We had a kids who liked music. We had a van, or I don't know, like a trailer or something, like a mobile unit where they could with a producer, and they would record in it, and just, I mean, we had some really great stuff for these kids. I just loved them, and so I do miss that part of it because they're so great to talk to, as you know. So, but
And
then,
that's it for kids too, because I know, like, for me it was sports, like some kids it's sports, but whatever it is, if a kid has an interest in something like that, like
yep,
that's what you gotta promote with the kid. Like you gotta encourage it. Like, and
yep,
you know, just help them, follow their dreams, whatever it may be. I got one kid. Yeah, I call him a kid. He's a grown man now. He still follows me actually. He calls me coach. And he had a lot of like physical. We had to get like 10 doctor's notes for him to wrestle. And when he finally wrestled, and like he would never give up, even though he had all these physical conditions against him, let's just put it that way. And when he won his one JV match, that whole team, it was like we won the Super Bowl.
yeah,
Like, because we all, even the best wrestlers on the team, were like, they were motivated by this kid because
yep,
they saw how much he cared about this. And he
yep,
still calls me coach. He still checks in on Facebook. He always asks me, "Hey, how's your brother doing?" Because my bro and me were his coaches, so he calls us coach. And
yeah. Good for
he,
you, and that's
yeah, it's
wonderful.
just that those are the stories, like because that for him, just to get on that mat, like that was his dream
Yep,
to wrestle. And when
yep.
he got to actually be on the team, and be not only on the team, but be someone that everyone on the team respected,
Yeah, I
you
mean, it
know?
is amazing. I've had a couple of people, because I have a public Facebook page because it was for my book, who have gotten in touch. "Do you remember me? I'm doing really well." I had one recently, right? And I have one kid on LinkedIn who's doing really well in the professional world, who comes on and says thank you. I mean, I just, my whole life with teens and those kids was about connecting with them, because when you connect with them, then you listen. A lot of people just want to tell them what to do, and then that's like why they ran or whatever. But for me, it was like I treated them, like everything they said was important because it was important. So, but anyway, I feel like I've said enough.
I got one more question for you. Like you said, we're
Sure.
gonna kick like the negative, like the heartbreaking stories, but this Epstein stuff is all through the news now. It's everywhere. What do you think about that? Like, because I look at that, and I just look at, it just seems like the the Congress and the leaders just want to pretend it doesn't exist. What do you think about all of
Well,
that?
I've seen sexually exploited kids. We had them come in off the run, and what I can tell you, and in a couple of cases, they ended up in another state, were brought to another state. What I can tell you is that what happens to them is so utterly devastating and so completely traumatic that it impacts them for probably their whole life. And I've talked to survivors, and it's really hard when you're talking to them because they've been through so much. And a lot of times, aside from saying, you're amazing, you survived this, and there are different paths that you can take, because it's not going to be out of your life. People are like, oh, forget it and move on with your life. But I would say you're not going to forget it, but it's where are you going to put it? Because if you continue to put it in a way that allows you to, it basically allows you to be re-victimized, because the person who did this to you is still impacting you so negatively. You're allowing someone, this, disgusting person, or this person who did this, you're allowing them to re-victimize you. So let's figure out a way where you can, put this where it needs to be, get the help that you need, but not let it, take you down a path that allows you to become a victim again. And so, I've had to, I've had that conversation many times, but my heart breaks for the victims of Epstein, because it's with someone like him, where he had all the wealth in the world and could use it to do what he wanted. And Maxwell, his, co-conspirator, it's despicable. And like I said, my heart just breaks for them, because I know how you've seen how it's impacted many of them. Virginia Guthrie committed suicide after she, some people, can't get it, cannot get themselves into a situation where they can get a life back. So for me, my hope was always, I hope they get a life back.
Remind me of how lucky I was. Like, I look at my little, you know, I had some struggles growing up, but it was nothing compared to these types of stories that you hear, that you just laid out a lot of them, and then the Epstein, just horrible.
Isn't it? Absolutely. Just so horrible.
It
Oh,
makes me it makes me thankful for my parents and my my mom, my dad, and my stepdad, all of them. Victory has a question. Has
yes,
Carol
dear
Erskine heard
Zachary.
of the case Dear Zachary?
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, it's the documentary, and a lot of people have asked me that, and so, um, yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't know. There's so many stories, it's it's just incredible, how these kids have suffered. So, um, and yeah, that's a documentary that, I hope that people should pay attention to. But yeah, I know it's been a real serious discussion. I mean, I really thank you for doing it, because it's really hard.
I think
I think for someone just says I'm an honorary jerk. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
you're an already jerk.
I
You've
love
been
you.
here quite a few times. You've been here on the
Yeah,
show, and then, like you said, on the Howie Car Radio Network with me. So you definitely are like an honorary jerk at this point. If that makes a difference. I mean, you were a judge. I don't know.
well, I'm just as
I'm sure you
happy.
have bigger awards, but you're
Yeah.
part of the community now.
I'm
Is the
sure there are
message here?
people that called me Judge Jerk too, when
Yeah.
I get into side, or maybe lawyers, when I.
Yeah, when we spell it Jurk, that's an honor around
That's
here. It's
true.
like you're part of the community. I always say, "Welcome, jerks."
Yeah, that's funny. Thank you, everybody. I mean,
And Sarah's like one of our. She's our main mod. She's in the chat. She's like a big supporter and supporter of the show, and part of the team here. So she
yeah,
she
well,
loves
thank
you over
you.
here.
Yeah, you guys have been great. I mean, people tell me go on this one, go on that one. I just go on the ones that I feel comfortable. You've been really good to me, and I'm so grateful for you giving me the chance to talk about these cases, because I'm trying to get the word out there. And I just, I always enjoy the people in the chat. They're always amazing. They're always smart. And I just, enjoy seeing it. So, but thanks, Mike. I've kept you
Thank you.
warm.
We have a lot of women too. That's the big thing here. It's in our audience. It's almost
That's
all
great.
women. So they're moms and sisters, and they just are very into this, subject matter for obvious reasons. Before we let you go, do you have any final thoughts? Anything else you want to share? Obviously, people need to contact their state reps, state senators for the
Yep.
Harmony Commission.
Yep.
Someone was also asking, what can they do if they're outside of the state? Is there anything that they could be doing? And I guess, what are your final thoughts or final
Well,
message that you want to leave us with?
we might have people from outside the state writing to the people in the federal government, because that doesn't, and I'm going to be meeting with people, hopefully connected to the important places in Washington, D.C. One of the things for people who do get the book, even if it's on ebook, if you rate it on Amazon, that helps, because more people see it, and then they get the book, and then we get more money to the Dave Thomas Foundation for adoption. And those kids, they need that kind of support. And I just heard from the CEO on LinkedIn, just saying they were, happy to partner with me. You don't get a lot of money from books, though, but it was never like that. But yeah, I am, for you people who are not in Massachusetts, I will be releasing some information about what's going on with the federal government, and then the federal people listen to from every state because they're federal. So that's it. And like, if when I'm writing about this, one thing that's great from people from other states is they repost it. And that's I cannot even tell you how much that means when they repost it, because the word gets out to more and more people, and that's really really helps. Someone just asked a question about CASA.
CASA. What is CASA? I've heard that come up
The
before
court
at a
appointed
Canton
special.
Select Board meeting.
Yeah, does CASA allow for civilians to participate, as we did in Massachusetts? Yes, I've appointed hundreds of CASAs. They're volunteers, but that they're highly trained. And even though there's a lawyer for the child, the lawyer will always, have one position. And sometimes the court-appointed special advocate will agree, and then other times they'll tell the judge something else. They'll say, a lot of times the CASA would say, Judge, I don't agree with the lawyer, the DCF lawyer, that the child is doing fine. I went to visit the child the other day, and the child was crying about this or whatever. So, they're an important part of the process. And it doesn't mean that you believe everything, you not believe everything, but you weigh what they say with the rest of the evidence, and then you make a decision. But they're there for only one purpose, for the best interest of the child. So someone said they have them in Illinois. Yes, we have them here too. And, they've been really beneficial to me on so many cases, really beneficial. So for people who want to get involved helping kids, wherever you are, if you call the CASA organization, they'll train you, and then they'll hand a court case to you, a juvenile court case to you, and you will visit the child and you will talk to the judge. It's someone says, as you say, it's boots on the ground. And, that helped me out in so many cases. So if you want to get involved in doing this work, but it's not easy work. I'll say that, even for a CASA. So
yeah, working with trouble, it's not easy. It's very difficult work.
Yeah, sure is. But it's important work.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things, here's one. Oh, see, I lost it. But someone said that they reshare all of your tweets on Twitter, and it just brought up how can people support you and follow up on social media? You're on Twitter. We did post some of your tweets tonight. It's the Twitter is
the Carol
Erskine.
Yeah, that was done by the publisher. I didn't, like the whole time I was a judge, I didn't have Twitter. I didn't really know much about it. And I only had a private Facebook page. I do have a public Facebook page, where people send me messages a lot. That's also the Carol Erskine, because I have a private Facebook page for my family. And I have another Facebook page called Kid Hero Books, which is my little own publishing company. When I was on the bench, I I just felt like kids going into foster care didn't have a lot of stuff that there was their own. So I wrote this book called The Scary Cloud Monster, where a kid hero story, where the kids are the heroes. And I just published my second book on Amazon, and that went up on Amazon in one category on the Amazon bestseller list. It's called The Scary Snow Monster. And these books are about, they're only the kids are in the books, and they're the heroes, and they figure out how to defeat these monsters using kind of what they learned in school. And it's all about empowering kids. So when I did the first book, I ordered my own from the publisher, and then I would give them to kids that I had to put in foster care. So even though we would give them blankets and books and book bags and all of that stuff, I wanted to have something where they knew that they could be the hero, that they were exceptional, that kids could figure out how to overcome their fears on their own. So that's what I did. So yeah, there it is, The Scary Snow Monster. And some of the proceeds I donate to St. Jude's for that book. So those are some of the scenes from it. I wrote these books with my kids. So when they were little, because they wanted a scary story and I couldn't find any. And they're illustrated by my daughter-in-law, who's just an incredible illustrator. So if you have kids like between 4 and 9, it's all about, I give tons of these books away to kids. Because I just want them to feel important and to feel empowered. My Cloud Monster, it was up on Amazon. This one's brand new, but the Cloud Monster book, mostly I just gave those away. I would order them and then just give them to kids. So it was all about that. So that's just another site that I have. But anyway, that's a lot. I don't want people to think I'm pushing the books. I'm not, I don't make any money because I donate.
I'm pushing them. Because I know that you donate money and they're good. And, especially books for kids too. Like when I say sports saved me, the other thing that saved me was books.
Yeah.
My mom used to just send me to the library, go to the library. I'd come home with like 10 books. Like,
yeah,
books were a big thing for me.
Isn't it good?
Go anywhere with books.
And on Snow Monster, not only did I donate it to Jameson because I really wanted to do that, because he was so brave, but in the beginning of the book, and it's somewhere on there, but I published a picture. My illustrator put all these little snowmen, and then there's a little snow girl with angel wings and glasses, and just in memory of Harmony, as a subtle memory for Harmony. So yeah, we wanted to do that for them, and Jameson actually read I think I posted about it, or Blair did. They read the story to his 3rd grade class, and so we're doing some things with that. We're making some I did the reveal was at at a big event in my town, and so people bought the books and at the launch, and so I donated that money to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. But so that's what we're doing. But anyway, thanks for that.
I had one more question for you, because I know we've said we're going to wrap it up, but I always have more questions.
Sure.
It seems like you covered Brian Walsh quite a bit. What's up with their kids? Because
I don't
feel
know
so
how that
bad for those kids. They lost their mom, and then the dad's in jail now. So
I don't even know
happens
how
next?
that happened. I'm trying to figure out how I did. I think I posted very little, but I did at one time post, how are these kids? Because of course, when you have a parent that's incarcerated and a parent that is deceased, those kids, something has to happen with those kids. So, in the time I was a judge, I had 4 or 5 cases. I had 4 murder suicides, leaving kids behind, that we had to find places for. And I had 2 or 3, I can't remember, but at least 2 cases where the father murdered the parent. And so, so that it was concerning. And I asked that question. And then I was making comments about the judge, who I thought she was an amazing judge, Judge Frenier. And I thought, when you compared Judge Frenier to some other judges that, people could see, just, how well she handled it.
She was great compared to like Judge Beverly Canone because I watched most of that trial, both trials, and
Right.
it was just a breath of fresh air, even though it wasn't like a happy trial at all.
No,
It was pretty
no.
miserable trial. She's a very good judge. I
He's
like
an
her a lot.
excellent judge in every way, and I posted about that. So then I started getting calls. So I then appeared on NBC 10, and they asked me, can you tell us, what the difference was in the judges? And I talked about how she handled expert witnesses and things that she let through. Judge Frenier, like letting the lawyer ask the medical examiner, who of course didn't see a body, and and it's like, well, isn't it true someone can die this way? I mean, normally that stuff wouldn't come in without a foundation, but a judge can let it in, and she gave him every opportunity. My comment was, she scrupulously protected his constitutional rights, and so yeah, and so then I got a call from ABC's. Yeah, that's about my books, but my justice
Yeah, I
file.
just had a request. People want to know where all your books are, so I did look it up for people that want to know. Uh,
Yeah,
that's the
what, if you
website.
can find, if you can, there's a website called Kid Hero Books. That's a lot about other things that I do and my books, but you can
What is
visit
it called? Kids Heroes Books?
the Kid Hero Books. I think
Kid
it's
Hero Books.
kidherobooks.com, has the books. But yeah,
There we go. The
that's
Scary Monster.
yeah,
There we
and then
go.
there's
Is it on the screen
information
now?
there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, so anyway, I forgot where I was before.
Oh no, you were talking about the Brian Walsh and
Oh
and
yeah,
the
so
judge.
I got a call from ABC's Nightline.
Wow.
I was absolutely shocked about that. And they had some questions that I talked to them for a long time, and then and that was actually before the trial started, when we thought that, and then there was a question of there was going to be a plea, but yeah, I was still on there, and so that something like that, although scary for me, something like that gets people looking at the websites that I want them to look at about, saving children and things of that nature. So, yeah, Cloud Monster is great. It's not as illustrate. There are more illustrations in Snow Monster, but they're the same kids. But the one thing about Snow Monster I will say is, because in Cloud Monster, their friend, who this based on kids, like real kids, like my kids and Kid in the Neighborhood with some name changes. But in Snow Monster, the neighborhood girl, who's close friend of one of my sons, is a lot more in the book and part of the saving. So if you want more girl involvement, that
That's
that's
the
the one.
book.
Yeah, yeah. You showed pictures before, and you could see her. We call her Anaya, but anyway, yeah. So that's all about that. And thank you again, Mike, because this stuff. All this stuff helps kids. Not only the stories, I think, help kids and empower them, but the money, money. We do a portion of the proceeds on the Snow Monster to, although I've sent all of them so far to St. Jude's, and some of the costs go to me just buying books to give away. So I try to keep some of that so I can get more copies to give away. So anyway. That's
Excellent.
that. I want to
I hope
just, geez, these people in the chat, I just want to say thank you to all of them, for listening, because it's kind of a long chat today. And so I just want to say thank you to them for, all the nice
you.
things they said and for the good
Yeah.
questions.
I want to thank you. Thank you, Judge Carol Erskine, for being here and spending so much time with us. And it's a great honor every time you come on the show. And it's great to hear about the work you're doing and just for these kids, to have somebody out there who's speaking up for them. It's I'm glad to have you here speaking in the Commonwealth in Massachusetts. We need more of this, and I'm very thankful for you. So we're
Yeah.
all thankful for you. Thank
Yeah.
you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you all. I mean, it's one of the best parts. One of the things I like about these podcasts is just hearing from people, because it just, is just great to hear what they're thinking. And like I said, they're always intelligent, smart people. So Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. You've just been great, and I'm grateful for that.
Thank you. You have a great weekend. Are you going to watch the Super Bowl this weekend?
Oh,
Are you
are you kidding?
football or not?
I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, my family's like football fanatics.
Patriots? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've
Mine
seen
are
many.
too.
I've been to many Patriots games, because we have a friend who has tickets. So I saw Tom Brady a lot, and oh yeah, like I'm out of control though with it. So I will
Are
say,
you? Are you like one of those yelling at the TV screen?
yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta calm down, calm down. See, I used to be like that with Steve Grogan and Matt Kavanaugh and
yep,
Tony.
yep,
Remember Tony Eason?
yeah, oh
And
yeah,
then we Drew Bledsoe. I saw
yeah,
Drew
oh yeah,
Bledsoe one of his
yeah,
biggest
yeah,
games ever.
yeah.
My grandfather was a big football guy. He used to
Oh my
take us to the
gosh.
football
So
games.
go Pats. So
Yeah,
I'll leave
but
with that.
the big thing for me now, like I don't even care. I don't care. I'll watch it, but I'm looking forward to the music. Like I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to Green Day and Bad Bunny. I love the music. I'm always like the
Well,
highlight for
you're
me was
showing
when
my
Prince
age.
played the Super Bowl.
I love Green Day, but Bad Bunny, don't know anything about it. But hey, have fun anyway. Have
I
fun with
will.
it. Well, all
That's the thing.
right.
I don't really know either, but I'll enjoy it either if I don't like it. Like I love music. I love watching it, and it's like you get a little taste of somebody
Yeah,
else, and
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
to see how it comes off, the big spectacle. I
yeah,
love that. I watch the
yeah,
Grammys.
yeah.
Like
It's
I
fun.
love it all.
It's fun.
So
All right, Mike.
yeah.
Talk
You have a
soon.
great night. Thank you
Thanks. You
so
too.
much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye, Carol. We're the Young Jerks. That was so much fun having Carol on the show and you in the chat. I want to thank everybody who's been here tonight. I think I needed that show. Like, even though it's kind of tough topic, it just get back to business. This is what we're here for. And I want to thank our mods, all the mods here, all the ladies here. V Dot. There were some dudes here, but it's mostly ladies and V Dot, and I love that. I love that V Dot was here. He's a good man. I know he really cares about this stuff too. And all of you contributed. Yeah, good questions, good comments. I'm very thankful for you today. Like yeah. So thank you for all being here, and thank you for asking about the books because Carol doesn't want to promote the books like that, but I think it's important that we do promote those books, and especially for the kids. A lot of the money goes to good charities. She gives a lot of the books away to kids, and these books, some of the books are for kids themselves. So and like I said, for me growing up, sports and books are what saved me. My coaches and in the library, like that was what got me through life. So books, I love children's books. I think it's such a big thing for kids because a lot of times when these kids are nonverbal, that's what gets a kid verbal. That's what worked for me. When I was in first or second grade, they thought I was a little bit slow. I started reading like a madman. Next thing I know, I'm testing at the top of the class, the Iowa test, It was all those books. I got into the books. So I'm big about books. I love it. I'm about the kids. I know that the environment can mean so much. That's why I'm so glad to have her on just to kind of discuss these subjects tonight. I know it was tough. I know a couple people said I got to check out. I can't take anymore, and I get it. It's hard to listen to some of these stories, but it's important, and it's important that we have somebody like Carol out there who's speaking up for these kids. It means a lot to her. She was on the bench, and now she gets to speak for these kids. And we did pin her website. She's got a few different websites. The justicefile.com is the main website. She's got a blog there. She's also, like we said, she's got the main book that goes to Harmony, that talks about, that covers the Harmony case, but the money goes to the Dave Thomas Fund, which is great. It's a great charity. So check that out. Make sure you follow her on Twitter if you're not. Reshare her tweets all the time. Make sure you're following her on all the social media. I also want to thank the people who gave some super chats tonight because I got to say, when I've been covering this stuff like Epstein last night, they covered the Epstein case. YouTube doesn't like it. They demonetize it, So I'm pretty sure they might demonetize this one as well. So it's the super chats that kind of keep the lights on here, allow me to be able to cover the costs, the StreamYard and all the other. Time is money as well. So I want to thank What the Doc. Thank you so much. I want to thank Sue, who's always very generous over here, and Denise, another one who's very generous. She sent 1999, said thank you for hosting the subject with Carol again. So I want to thank Sue, What the Duck, Denise, and also, of course, Real V Dot. He had the first super chat tonight. And I also want to thank everyone who ordered the book tonight. That's the other thing I love when we have these authors on and people, especially for Carol, when you all do order the book. So last time she came on, she told me we charted. The reason, the book charted was because of the show. So I'm really appreciative that you guys watch and then go buy these books, and especially her book, because like I said, it supports kids. So thank you again, everyone who was ordering, and some of you already read the book. Some of you already bought the book last time. I saw Victory said she's buying the book. She can't wait to read it as well. Um, so I want to thank everybody. And again, Carol's going to be on Boston 25 on Monday. So check that out as well. Do we have any other comments here? Yeah, they got Brian twice on Epstein today, huh? I think he had copyright. I know at least once was about the BBC. BBC whacked him. That's a problem when you're covering this stuff. It's hard to find the content you want to play. You get worried about copyright, and then you get worried about the YouTube algorithm and the censorship. It's tough. That's why the super chats make a big difference. Um, what's going on with my eye? I'm having surgery. It's a week from this Tuesday. So the 17th, I'm having surgery, cataract surgery. It's not supposed to be a big deal, but they're saying my cataract surgery is kind of I don't know what they called it, but it's like the eye is damaged. It's not going to be like an easy cataract. It's like a more difficult one. So hopefully it works. I'm praying it works. So hopefully that happens. And I got all my physical, I got all my blood tests, and I paid for the cataract already. They charge, even though I have insurance, you have to pay for the actual lens. So I'm all good on that. I'm gonna have the surgery a week from this Tuesday. And also, yes, our mods have been posting the links tonight. If you haven't subscribed to us, please subscribe to us. Wherever you're watching us, is Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Please make sure you're following and subscribing. And especially, I would say on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, especially those are like the big ones. Facebook, we got a big bump this week. We posted some videos that got a lot of views. So I want to thank all of our new Facebook people who were following us. You love the Scholastic books. I used to, it's funny, I used to read the Scholastic books. Remember that? You get the Scholastic reader. Yeah, I remember that. You could order the books. I just love the library. I read like I got into science fiction at one point. I read remember the Billy Budd books? Remember The Wizard of Oz? I read all those Oz books. There were a million Oz books. I read them all. Oh, you having them done on the February 25th? Then you and I should exchange information, and because I'm having it like maybe a week before you. We're both going through the same thing. I just having one eye done. Yes, and again, here's Carol Erskine. Make sure you follow her on X. That's the Twitter or X, whatever we were calling it. Yes, I used to get the National Geographics too in the library. You'd read all those. Libraries are very comforting. Yes, they are. The Dune series, I remember reading those. Frank, wasn't it? Oh, I'm trying to remember who wrote those. I did remember reading that. Weekly readers, absolutely. Maybe that's what I'm talking about. I'm getting confused now. It's been a long time. But I remember all that stuff. Yes. Yeah, I want the pirate patch because I want to come on here with a pirate patch. I'm thinking about it too. I'm like, should I do a show with the pirate patch? Will people get some? I don't usually like sympathy. I'm not like a big sympathy guy. I don't like to cry but I think like the pirate patch would be kind of funny. You guys can feel bad for me for a day. I think I look badass. That's more of what it would be about for me. It's like, yeah, I'm a pirate. It's funny if you know me well. DJ from Calling All Beings noted this. He said Mike doesn't take compliments that well. And it's kind of true. Like I'm not like a big compliment guy because I just feel like a lot of times compliments aren't real. Like people are just trying to be nice to you, and I don't need compliments. You know what I mean? Like I know what I am. I don't really need that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's just kind of me. But it also depends on who you are. Like my wrestling coach, the baddest mother F around. I think when he complimented me one time, that meant something. You know what I mean? When someone's a tough judge, let's put it that way, or a badass, and they don't compliment much. And the Irish, like the culture I grew up, the Irish Catholic, we don't hug, like we don't touch each other, we don't give a lot of love. It's kind of cold, just the way it is. But when you actually give that kind of compliment or love, it means something. Do you know what I'm saying? Where a lot of my Italian friends, they're all over you, they're kissing you. It's just a different thing. So that's me. Yeah, Irish moms are tough. My mom was very tough. I think my wrestling coaches were scared of my mom. My wrestling coaches, like, I talk about Cornelius Madigan. He uh he was a heavyweight wrestler, but he was a small heavyweight, and he would still win. Like the maximum weight back then was like 275 in high school. He was probably like 190, 200, 220, somewhere in that range, depending on how bulky he was. But he was fast and strong as hell, and he'd still win. You know what I mean? Those guys could outweigh him. But he played. Not only was he like an All-American wrestling Division One out of UNH, he was the fullback on the football team as well. Like he like yeah. So those guys, I think, were afraid of my mom. Like the toughest people you've ever meet in your life, but also the nicest guys. Like my coach Con, very nice guy. He's still around. He's still refereeing actually. They just gave a kid from I think Beverly, Mass. I got to look that up. Like a high school kid won the Dan Madigan Award just recently, Northeastern Conference. I think it was from Beverly. A kid from Beverly won the Dan Madigan Award, which is named after Con's dad, who was my biggest fan. Dan was great. All right, I'm gonna go. I started talking about high school wrestling again. Some trolls are gonna be loving that. They get very upset when I talk about high school wrestling. So what do? I talk more about. You know what even makes them matter is even more upset and angry is when I talk about John Cena. I don't know why they get very upset when I talk about John Cena. I'm sorry you don't know John Cena. I don't even know. I know John Cena's brothers. I don't really know John. I met him like once or twice. Yeah, there's no trolls in the chat. They're watching though. They don't get to comment anymore, but they're watching and they clip. They clip. That's the funniest thing. I think these trolls aren't watching anymore, and then I go on Twitter and they're just regurgitating everything I say, and like I ignore them. Like I have them blocked. I don't even pay attention, and then someone tags me. Someone will be like, "Mike, did you see this?" And I realize they still watch. They still watch, and it's funny as hell. I guess I must be important. I don't even want to be important, but apparently I am. Yes, the combat sport thing. That's another thing they get upset about. I never even, it's funny about the combat sports because you know who said that? DJ. DJ reminded me. Mike, they've never done because DJ used to wrestle too. Mike, they've never done a combat sport. It's like, oh yeah, we did combat sports, DJ. They're very upset about that. Yeah, exactly. I like that they're still watching, actually. I enjoy that. I think one day what I'm gonna have to do is take off my shirt here and show my muscles. And then they'll really get upset. That'll really burn them. I did that like once. I took off my shirt for a fundraiser. I don't know. I think it was for Karen Reed. I may have to do that again. I may have to do a pull a Glera and just go shirtless the whole show, like really piss off the trolls. Because for an old man, I still look good. I still look good. I see myself in the mirror and I'm like, damn, dude, you still got the arms. People think I'm a skinny little guy. I am pretty skinny, but I got muscle. I got definition. Still, and at this age, I'm still looking good. I want to read the Rembrandt Heights. You should. That book is so good, man. They need to make it into a movie. I'm gonna get Anthony Amori back on the show again. Yeah. That's a thing too. Like Sarah, she says, but the nipple rubbing only happens at Revere Beach. That was probably like when I was actually out of shape the most. Is when I was at Revere Beach with my shirt off, rubbing the nipples as the girls pouring a beer on my shirt for the Revere Beach video. I was a little bit chubby then, you know. That was probably when I like let myself go the most. Actually, when they, if I was rubbing my nipples now, I think they would get very upset. Yeah, John Como did. Wait, used to do it. John Como did it on every show that he came on of mine. He would take off his shirt for to help me fundraise. He did that a lot, actually. I'm gonna pull a. I said to Claire, I'm gonna pull a John Como. Really pissed him off. I'm gonna talk about John Cena in combat sports and rub my nipples. So funny in that Revere Beach video too. Like I wasn't really even supposed to be in it. Those are my friends, like Robbie and the director. Like I was basically helping out the director, Warren Lynch. He's a friend of mine. And congrats to Warren Lynch because he won his lawsuit against the city of Malden. A story I covered. He just won. It looks like they're getting a dispensary license, which is great. But Warren was directing it. He's like, Mike, you need to be in the video. I need to get you in the video. And we actually the cops came. And I was the guy who went out and talked to the cops and got the cops to chill out because we didn't have a permit and we're filming on Revere Beach. And we got like a fat guy dancing with a girl and people calling the cops on us. So I talked to the cops. And so we sent everyone home. And then Warren and I just went to film a couple scenes with just a couple people at the end. I was even filming a little bit. I did a little filming in that video. And Warren's like, dude, we want to do the pour the beer on the chest thing, but we don't want it to be like the way that most music videos are, where they pour the drinks on the girls. We want to do it to you, Mike. So that was like our feminism. Like we were, they, the girl got to pour the beer on my chest and rub it in my nipples. That was funny. I also poured it on hers too. We still got some of that in there. We still did the cliche music video, but we did it a little differently. Yeah, I love how it's gotten off it's the trolls. It's the troll effect. The judge is gone and now we're off the rails. I hope she's not watching this. The show was classy until we brought up the trolls. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. No more Canadian John Como. No more talking about shirts off or Revere Beach or any of that stuff. Combat sports. I guess I'm back. I guess I'm back. I'm feeling good here. I'm glad you're enjoying it. But again, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe tonight. And again, thank you to all the super chatters. Thank you for everybody who's been here. And thank you for sharing and all that. And make sure when you subscribe on YouTube, you hit all notifications. You want me to play the Revere Beach video? Oh boy. I wonder if I'll get copyright strike. What if Robbie's got that? I don't think Robbie would mind. Let's do that. Do you guys want to see the Revere Beach video? Maybe another time. I don't think we should do it on the Carol show. We were just talking about kids, very serious subject. I'm just getting. You want to? You think we should or not? Or should I save that for next time? Do you think I'm going to ask you, Sarah, in chat? Do you think it's appropriate to play the Revere Beach, or should I save it for another show? Yeah, next show. Everyone's saying, okay, fair point. Yeah, I think I've already gotten too carried away. Yeah, we don't want to get the show struck. We'll play it another time. If you haven't seen it, you probably don't want to see it anyways. It's a pretty raunchy video. It's a music video done by comedians making fun of Revere Beach. All right, I'm out of here. You got me smiling and laughing though. We are trolling the trolls tonight. All right, I'm not sure when I'm coming back either. I'm not sure when my next show is, but I'll be around. Put it out in a short. You want to see it? What what the duck wants to see it? I'm gonna wave at the trolls. Yeah, this one's too important to strike it with Revere Beach stuff. This one's probably already gonna get demonetized anyways because of the content. YouTube. I mean, we have a serious discussion here, and then YouTube gets weird about it. It's like, come on, adults can't have a regular conversation without you putting an 18 plus warning on it or whatever. Come on. It is funny as hell. It is a funny video. All right, let's go Pats and let's go Green Day and Bad Bunny. That's what I like. I like to watch the Super Bowls for the music. I'm one of those guys. I'm all about the music. I hope people do replay it and share this video around. Please share it on your Twitter and your Facebook and all those places. Invite your friends. Tell them they need to subscribe. Maybe next show. Maybe I'll play it on the next show. That would be funny. I'll do a solo show. Maybe I'll bring up JFK up here. I was just talking to him earlier, and we'll look at the Revere Beach video, and he can make fun of me. Say, Mikey, I wouldn't have done that. I don't know. I don't think JFK takes his shirt off for any music videos. I'm not sure. He seems too classy to me. They call him all these names, but he's pretty. JFK's actually kind of a conservative guy, if you ask me. All right, I'm out of here. I'll see you. I'll see you next time. Again, thank you so much for watching, subscribing, being here. Really appreciate you all. Peace out. I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, actually, you said Kid Rock for me. I'm not with Kid Rock. I'd never like Kid Rock. I don't know why. I just don't. Someone got mad at me actually on Twitter. One of the trolls was complaining because I gave them shit about Kid Rock because I don't like Kid Rock. But you know what? I'm not mad at you. Like it's funny. Like Glamour, I'm so glad you're here. And if you like Kid Rock, that's your thing. That's your thing. Like I would never get mad that you like Kid Rock. If somebody said I hate Pearl Jam and Nirvana, I would not get mad at them. It's a personal choice. It's taste. We all don't like the same music. But someone got really mad at me because I don't like Kid Rock apparently on Twitter. They said I was a dick. I'm sorry. Exactly. Who cares? That's like saying I like the color I like the color blue and you like the color red. It doesn't matter. Like I don't care what your favorite color is or I like chocolate ice cream, you like vanilla ice cream. I actually like vanilla ice cream. All right, I got to go. Yeah. This is a false stop, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down. It's time to go. Because if not, I'll be here and Green Day will be playing in the Super Bowl. And I'll be like, I got to go. Green Day's on. Yeah, I'll probably watch JFK tonight. And I got to go. I want to call JFK back, actually. So I'm going to go. I'll see you later. Bye, people. Love you, ladies. And I love that I love that you all are here. I love the ladies that are here, and I also loved V Dot was here as well. The real ones were here tonight. The Granny Debbie, Sugar 2N, Sherry. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Peace out. Have a great night. Allman Brothers, now you're talking. That's some real music. And I like rap and hip hop, but I don't like Kid Rock. I don't know why. I just don't like them. The Allman Brothers, I can mess with the Allman Brothers. I like the Allman Brothers. But I gotta go now. Because if we start talking about music, I'll be here all night. Music is a personal taste. Some of us like certain things, and there's artists like what's that band I've been so into? There's artists that I love right now from my past that I didn't like when they came out. You know what I mean? So like taste change, you know? Sometimes you grow into music or you grow out of music even. But I gotta go. Have a good night because Sarah's gonna be reminding me. Black Sabbath, I love it. I'll see you next time. Have a great night. Peace. And if you don't like Pearl Jam, I don't want to talk to you. No, I'm just kidding. Have a good night.